root, and we can save you up to 52% off your car insurance rate.
RJ.
Hey, bud. Can you see me? Good. Can you see me all right?
Let's see here. Yeah, we'll be jumping right into it here. So
That's all right.
jumping right into it, and then
I've
go ahead
got,
and
I've got the YouTube channel up so I can check out the comments, you know.
yeah. Let me go ahead and
I think we get all the same knuckleheads.
yeah, I think so. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, right, huh?
We've been working on this in the background here, so. But yeah,
Let's go.
I could see you here. If anybody wants to chime in and just let us know if you could hear us, then you're good to go. Everything should be good. But let's see what we got here. I guess we'll give them a few minutes to pile in, but let's see what
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. Yeah, we'll just we'll rock it to the Delta to the DMZ. We'll just wait for the knuckleheads to pile in. I had a little 5-minute, 2-minute, whatever it was, 2 or 3 minute little clip that I put up there and told the 25 knuckleheads to come on over. We're having a party at your place,
Okay.
so that'll work.
Well, they're in for a good show tonight. We got some new.
I think we got some good stuff. Absolutely. Hang on a second. I'm going to jump over here and close my soundproof office door here. One of my kids crashing the party. You know, it's the whole stay-at-home thing. All right. Yeah. Shelter in place. I think my kids know more about Tupac than I do now.
All right. There you go.
Yeah.
They're going to carry on the legacy.
That's right. Yeah. This episode brought to you by Dickey's Barbecue. Always the best barbecue around.
The real unofficial sponsor.
That's right. Well, the best thing about it is they get free advertisement while we build it up. So let's see. What do you got here? What do you guys think about Gene Deal exposing Diddy and Greg Kading? You guys should really get Gene Deal on the podcast. Did you catch that one, Kaz?
I did.
You see the same comments I am, right? Yeah.
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 No.
What do you think?
I was gonna say I don't have any close relation with him. I mean, honestly, I'm very objective. You know, and anybody really could join the podcast for all I'm concerned, because I think the more information we can get, the better. But I mean, it just depends on those individuals.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem. I mean, well, everybody knows where I'm at with Gene. I mean, you know, he thinks I'm a racist, doesn't want to talk to me. So, you know, that's kind of the end of that discussion. I've said so many podcasts, so many live streams. I have said I have no issue with Gene Deal at all. Think he's a great dude. Had a great talk with him on the phone a couple times. Thought it was great. You know, but he some reason got it stuck that he thinks, you know, that one comment defines who I am as an individual. And sadly, I wish that weren't the truth. I wish he knew me a little bit better. Most of the people that know me like me pretty well. So, you know, but that, you know, the good thing is, you know, Gene has always had a thing against Puffy. I mean, let's just be honest. Gene's, you know, he has a lot of animosity towards Diddy. And I think for good reason, to be perfectly honest with you. I think there's a lot of good reasons that he does, you know, for sure. But, you know, I'm leaving my telephone wide open. And most of you guys actually know my phone number. I haven't changed it. And can have Gene reach out to me. We can talk on the back channel one-on-one, you know, try to get some stuff done. I think that there are a couple people out there that are enjoying the fact that Gene isn't talking to me, and I won't mention any names, but I think that they kind of enjoy that fact a little bit because it gives them control. But you know, my phone number's out there. You know, the open call to Gene. Gene, call me. Let's chop it up. I can tell you the things that you may know or may not know, and let's work it out. My phone number's wide open, so that's how I put it out there like that. Whiskey to Don, what's happening? Connoisseur, what's happening? Mimi Star, did you like the? I think you said you found the our podcast. Good. Did you enjoy it? That was, new days, new format, new co-hosts, right, Cos? We're there at
Yeah,
this point.
absolutely. I mean, I think it's two brains working together to get some more information on the Tupac murder and even the Notorious B.I.G. murder is going to be a plus,
Big
definitely.
time. Big time. So now here, check this out. So what I'm seeing on the live thing is I'm not seeing any pictures. I'm just seeing the card of the show on the front of that. And guys, by the way, bear with us as you're loading up to check out to see. We're working out some technical things as we go through here. So. And I don't know, Kazi, is there another card that you could flip to where you actually have the live thing? It's not just the one image there, the on the main screen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So basically, well, the next one's actually going to be the next scene's going to be that there, which is going to be the timeline there. Do you see that timeline there? There may be a small delay there. Do you see that or not?
No, well, hold on, not yet. Hold on, maybe my problem is I'm not playing it.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what, dude? Okay, wait a minute. Never mind. Shit. Okay, there it is. Oh, there. Oh, okay, dude. I got it now. Okay, I had it like stuck on freeze where I was freeze framing shit.
Okay.
So I'm there. Okay, cool. Right on. I'm there. I got you.
All right. So
I,
we gave away
I
a
got
little bit of the
you. No.
goods so far, but if you want to segue into what we're going to be speaking about tonight.
Cool. All right. Well, we are going to talk again, and bye bye houses. Welcome to the show. Cypress Gardens. Welcome to the show. Christopher Burke. Welcome to the show. This is the power of two. We're going to take all this knowledge and we are going to double it. So we consider this amplification for sure. So we are going to talk tonight about what y'all may or may not have heard on the podcast today. A little quick note too, I guess, Kazi, what I'll do is kind of get a little heads up about how we're changing format and stuff. So what we're planning to do is we're planning to put the podcast out on a Tuesday. We were late this time around getting it because RJ couldn't get off his ass and get it done. But we will get it. The goal is to get the podcast out on Tuesday on a particular topic and subject matter so y'all can listen in your car. Well, most people are sheltered at home, but if you're an essential worker, you can listen in your car. Everybody else, just get up in the morning and turn it on, and it'll be there. You can listen to it. It'll be a half hour to an hour where we're going to talk about a subject. And then on Thursday, we're going to do a live show where we're going to chop it up and get even to more depth, show some documents. On a podcast, you can't show documents. You can't show the evidence. You can't show it. So on the podcast, we're going to talk more about the subject. We're going to show some things. We're going to do a little bit more visual aid presentation. And then we're going to take the the live stream and take the audio out of the live stream that we did, and we're going to make it another podcast. So if you have more time and you missed the live stream and you're in your car, you just want to listen to what we have to say, you can watch the repeat of the live stream up there, or you can listen to the audio version as another podcast, and we'll just call them the live rebroadcast podcast or something like that, and do it up that way. So that's going to be how things are going to change. We're going to get a lot of information out there a lot faster. Some really cool freaking things are coming down the pipe. Some big interviews are coming down the pipe. Some big news is coming down. A lot of things are happening. So this is a good time to get this format set up. And by the time we get it all rocking and rolling, we're set. Off to you, co-host.
Well, we're just going to begin, and the only announcement that I'm really going to make before we actually jump into it is and I'm working on an interview with somebody who was part of that event at Club 662 that was an outsider that had some information about what took place. I can't give away the person's identity at this point because I'm still working on it. I don't want anybody to foil it, but I am going to have an interview with somebody who has intimate details about that night at Club 662.
Okay, good. That'll be fun, man. I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how that turns out. That's for sure. What was I going to say? Oh, you know what? Cypress Garden said something. Maybe we can look into it. Maybe we can set aside a part of the live show where we take like a couple call-ins or something like that. Do some live calls. Those are always fun.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
we can always hang up on them. Motherfucker get crazy. We'll just hang up on them. You know, just torture them. That'd be the end of it. You know. But I think that, you know, one of the successes that we had, I mean, I enjoyed doing the live streams and all that, but I think one of the successes that we always had was when we could have a conversation. You know, when the two of us can get together and talk about things, and it's not just me getting on an hour-long rant, because that's usually how it's been, right?
Well,
So,
hour long. Well, an hour long is okay, but when you get on 4 hour long.
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. They're going to put that on Reggie's tombstone. It's going to say, Reggie Wright, he said a lot of shit. Okay? You know, that's what they're going to do. So, okay, and it says the audio is echoing. Okay, so what that probably means, I have my YouTube turned off, the volume. Kazi, you might want to turn the volume off on your YouTube.
Okay, you got it. I'm going to turn it off now.
Yeah, just mute the YouTube playback.
Okay.
If you're doing like me, we're checking the comments and stuff. Let's see. Did that fix Connoisseur? Did that fix the audio? Holla back.
Yeah, that should have fixed it right there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So here's a small learning curve. So
Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's what it
Okay,
was.
yeah.
And that's my fault. This is our first rodeo, so we're just trying to fine tune it, but we're getting there.
We're rocking and rolling through it, man. We're chewing up the scenery as we go. It's okay. It's all good. All right. Hey, Kaz, can you... okay, so let's just start from the start. On the podcast this week, we talked about Club 662. Now, for all of you who don't know what Club 662 was, raise your hand. I would hope everybody, at least the 25 knuckleheads that are here, I would think that they would know what Club 662 was. Club 662 was a club that was in Las Vegas. It was the club that Tupac and Suge were headed off to the night that Tupac got shot. Didn't get killed that night, but he got shot. And they were off to that nightclub. There have been, I mean, geez, guys, there have been, what, 1 million different stories and versions about the significance of Club 662 and what it was going to be for Death Row and what it was going to be for Suge Knight and on and on and on. The big thing about Club 662, as far as where I'm tuned into it in the investigation, is how Club 662 was used as the, I don't know, you want to call it a rationale or you want to call it an excuse? Kazi, which one would you say? Khaleesi's, was it a rationale or an excuse?
I'm gonna say it was an excuse.
Yeah, me too. The excuse that was given, that the bodyguards, Frank Alexander, Michael Moore, and all the bodyguards that were supposed to get together went to attorney by the name of George Khaleesi, went to his office, and he told them that because of something going on at the Club 662 that evening, that no one was to carry any weapons. Okay, that's what Frank said. That's what Michael Moore said. Maybe when I re-loop the podcast off of this, I'll drop those clips in so you can hear them talking about it themselves. To get that. But at the end of the day, that was what was used, that something special was going on at Club 662, and that they couldn't carry their guns, which is really interesting, because if they didn't want to have guns there, then why, when Michael Moore refused to put down his gun, did they send him to Club 662, okay, where they're not supposed to be any guns? And so the two guys from Right Way Security that are at Club 662 are Reggie and Michael Moore, and both of them have guns. So we thought we'd dig a little bit deeper into this whole Club 662 thing and try to understand what was, number one, what was Club 662, talk about some of the legends, talk about some of the stories that are out there about what it was supposed to be, because, so many people lie about these things, and then what it really was, and then talk about the story that was supposed to be the cover story for the event that was supposed to happen there. So we're going to do that. So, but let me do something real quick. Easy Boy Sonny's been asking a question for a long time. How old are and were the Patton brothers? They were in their early 20s when Pat, Kazi, were you with me when we did the math on that? Were you on with me when we did that? When we looked them up?
I think they were somewhere between the early 20s and mid 20s, if I'm not mistaken.
In 96. Yeah, in 96 they were both in their early 20s. And now they're in their late 40s, early 50s. So that's where they are. But that's so now you know. So clearly, their ages, Easy Boy, 88, Sonny, were in the zone for means, motive, and opportunity. Okay, it wasn't like they were 12. Okay. And here's a gun. You're 12 years old. Here's a gun. Maybe you can make a name for yourself. Okay, didn't work like that. So, Christopher Bell, welcome to the show. I buy houses, of course. Welcome to the show. One of the knuckleheads. Big 21, welcome to the show. So, yeah. So, Club 662 was a nightclub in Las Vegas, and it was a nightclub that wasn't originally called Club 662. In fact, at the time, it was a Mexican restaurant. It started as a Mexican restaurant on Flamingo Boulevard, and somehow they made it into a strip club. I mean, I'd like to see that business plan. Mexican restaurant transfers it to strip club. How does that work? And then what happens to Taco Tuesdays? So I would like to know where that came from. But it was a Mexican restaurant that moved to being a strip club, and then they took the strippers away from the club and just made it a nightclub. And nobody knew the difference, because you see how them hoochies dress when they go into those places anyway. I don't think anybody would know the difference. And we went there, and they made it a regular nightclub, and then it was called, Kazi, what was it called?
Botany.
Botany's. Okay, Botany's. And then it was called Botany's, and it stayed Botany's until middle of late 1994, early 1995. Right about the time that Suge Knight started providing entertainers to do concerts or do improv rap events at the club, and they changed the name to Club 662. 662 being the numbers on the keypad on your telephone that are spell out M-O-B. Okay, which had a lot of different. I think Suge said it was meant money over bitches, and I think the MOB was supposed to refer to the gangs. But I think what you're going to find out is calling it MOB was actually probably the most realistic name they could have called it at the time. They should have just called it Club Mob at the time. So we're going to get into that a little bit and talk about Club 662. I know y'all have heard a ton of names in around. Some of these names you're going to recognize, and some of these names you are not going to recognize. But let's get to it. What do you say, Kaz?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and jump into the next scene so you can kind of get a
blow it up
linear timeline here of what's in store.
Yeah, blow it up.
Okay. Let me go ahead and push you to the side here real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get that blown up.
Mark Jimenez says, meanwhile we're doing this, was this night of the Tyson fight a setup? I think so. There's a lot of people that think so. I think it was. Connoisseur, don't carry your weapons, y'all. Yeah, that's right. And again, I love the excuses and all of the rationalization that come 20 years later after the fact about it, from the complete denial that anybody went to the attorney's office and they think they met at a Denny's, or that they met someplace. Thank God It's Fridays. They met there. They did go to eat at Thank God It's Fridays, but they didn't. They went to the attorney's office too. Frank and Michael Moore both talk about it. And I think I've even got a phone call where the two of them themselves talk back and forth about them going, because they talk about wandering around. I guess Khaleesi's had just moved into that law office, and they were looking around in the building trying to find where his office was, and they couldn't find the office number, and had to kind of wander around looking for where his office was. So that was the story about Khaleesi's there. So, do you have the is the chart thing up there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's up there right now.
Okay. Now let's do this. Can we make that, I don't know, any bigger? I mean, can people actually see that?
Yeah.
It's kind of tiny.
Is it?
It's tiny on my screen because I don't have it full screen.
Okay.
So maybe it would do that. But all right. So we're going to basically, we're giving it all away because we're not hiding anything and laying this out, but we're going to kind of walk through the whole history here of how people got involved with Club 662. Like I said, Club 662 I don't think it was ever its real name. I think it was Botany's, and I think it was just nicknamed Club 662, kind of like a doing business as, and then they changed the signs for it and made it with the playing cards. And, I honestly think they probably could have hired a better signage guy because it all looks kind of handmade. I mean, it looks kind of like a third grader did the artwork for it, but clearly not the most professional signage I've ever seen in my life. That's for sure. But at any rate, we're going to start at the left-hand side. We're going to kind of move our way over here because it's important to understand that it looks like, and again, a lot of times people ask us, where did you get all this information from? I'm going to specifically refer you all that this is in part based on an article in the LA Times that was written on December 29th of 1996. So not even, 2 months, 3 months after Tupac died, this article came out, and the article said the U.S. probes death row record labels money trail. And this is all about the federal government chasing down Steve Cantrock, who was the accountant, and chasing down the money and what the FBI believed that Suge Knight was doing with his money at the time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk for just a quick second about how Suge Knight kind of got into the whole Club 662 business and all that. Okay. And again, like I said, there's been a bunch of stuff, and the club was originally called Botany's. And according to George Calisis, Botany's was financed with a loan from a woman by the name of Helen Thomas. And Helen Thomas, her husband, was named Carl Thomas. Now, they owned the lease on the property. Okay, so let's make sure we understand how everything fits together. If you look down at the bottom of it, you'll see George Calisis is the attorney. Helen Thomas owned the lease on the building. Okay, now that's different, and you'll notice the 4 squares around that building design. There's who had the lease on the property, who provided the entertainment, which was the Suge Knight part of it, who owned the club, and that's a whole lot different than who owned the building, and then finally, who owned the liquor license. So there wasn't just one person that was controlling all of this. There were several different parties, and each one of them had a piece of this club all by itself. But Suge Knight was actually introduced to the owners of Club 662 by a fellow by the name of Richard, or was it? Hold on, Herman. I'll get the name. Herman. Richard Herman. Yeah, and he was the first one that did business with Las Vegas with Richard Herman. He was an East Coast attorney who represented Scores, a topless nightclub in New York that was under investigation at that time for ties to organized crime. And we're going to talk about that again. But the FBI raided Herman's Park Avenue law office in the beginning of December of 1996, and they confiscated documents related to Scores. And we'll talking about that in just a minute. But after falling out with Robert Herman, Knight got introduced to a guy by the name of Robert Amira, who was a Las Vegas entrepreneur who was indicted with New York mafia figures Joseph Colombo Jr. and Alphonse the Whale Marola for biking the Dunes Hotel Casino in an airline junket ticket scam. The case was dismissed in 1982 because of communications between the prosecutor and the grand jury, and the judge thought it was was improper. So you've got Herman. Herman introduced another guy, but at one point, Suge Knight gets introduced through Herman to these two owners. One was by the name of Lyle Pfeffer, and then the other guy was the name of Michael Bluetree. And I'm going to talk for a minute about Lyle Pfeffer, and then Kazi, why don't you talk about Michael Bluetree for a minute, because you know a lot more about this dude than I do.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Lyle Pfeffer was a businessman who he did a lot of shady business. He was co-owner with Bluetree in the New York nightclub called Scores, and most of you guys see Scores from the Howard Stern show. That was really kind of where it made its big name. But it was in Manhattan. It was a huge strip club in Manhattan. I think it was like 3 stories or something like that. and kind of like the Walmart of strip clubs, I guess. But it was there, and most of the New York guys downtown, the business people, the stockbrokers, all that. There was just hundreds of millions of dollars that were pouring through that club, and I'm sure the drugs and everything else that went with it at the same time. But Pfeffer and this Blue Trick guy owned Scores. Now, they owned Scores in New York, and they made so much money off of Scores in New York, they opened up Scores as a franchise in different, kind of like the McDonald's of strip clubs. They opened up a Scores in a lot of major cities. There was a Scores in Dallas. I think there was a Scores in Florida. There was a Scores in Las Vegas. So they were there in Las Vegas, and they were running clubs. Now, ironically, or coincidentally, however, I guess a bit better word, coincidentally, the Club 662 at one time was a strip club. So it's very possible that they may have gotten interested in the club as a strip club. And as the strip club thing started to fall apart, they migrated that from a strip club to a legitimate club because they didn't want it basically taking business away from Scores, because they had opened up a Scores Las Vegas and they were going to make their money off of that Scores, and they didn't want to have another club competing with it. So that may have been the reason that it moved from a strip club to a regular nightclub in the first place that became Botany's. So Pfeffer was a guy who got indicted, and he paid some criminal price for was he the insurance guy, or was Blue Trick the insurance guy?
Blue Trick,
I can't remember.
he was
Huh?
he was the insurance guy. Blue Trick was the actual attorney, is what he was, and he was
Right.
actually, yeah. So he was essentially interconnected with the mob figures, and essentially what they were
Right.
doing was, as you look at
But
it,
wasn't Pfeffer the guy that kited a $4 million check to get the Scores nightclub to try to bribe the mob?
I believe that's true. But all in all,
Yeah.
in the whole scope of things, Michael Blutrich was the person who had done all the fraud. I think they totaled to about $400 million.
Jeez. Okay. So put a pin in that for a minute. Let's catch up on some hellos. Michael West said, well, what are we doing here? Michael West, we are talking about Club 662. We're talking about the truth of Club 662, and it's not what you've heard from the death row rumor mill. Okay. It's another one of the death row stories. It's probably more bullshit than true. Okay. And so let's say a few hellos. Mark Jimenez, welcome to the show. Let's see here. Where are we here? Ross Q woke soul Denver. I guess he's had a lot of messages deleted, so maybe he doesn't have good things to say. I don't know. Sparkle Brain, welcome to the show. Truth to God, welcome to the show. And Michael West, welcome to the show. So just catching up there real quick. All right. So why don't you talk about Blue Trick? Because he was the other owner in Scores, but he was also the other owner in Club 662. So let's talk about him.
Well, ultimately, Michael Blutrich was I guess you can say, kind of the middleman. He's the one that kind of organized the team in New York that we're going to talk about here in the next segment, where he had gotten these goons to come down from New York and set up shop. And essentially, what it was it was kind of a front, and the front company, you'll talk about it more. You'll elaborate on that. But Michael Blutrich was just basically interconnected with the mob. He ended up turning to the federal authorities and ended up testifying against a lot of mob figures. And essentially, what ended up happening at the end of the day was, of course, he's labeled as a snitch. I believe he was going to be put into the witness protection program. I think at some point he turned it down. But right now, as it stands, there's a $1 million bounty on his head from the mob. So essentially, he had connections with the Gambino family, and then that was pretty much interconnected with potentially the Genovese. Not too certain on that one, but of course, point blank, Gambino family. There's a connection there. And as far
Through
as
John Gotti. Yeah, John Gotti Jr.
right,
He was Blue Trick's buddy. Did a lot of business with him, and I think fronted the money for them to do Scores and a lot of other stuff. It was his relationship with John Gotti Jr. that got him into the Gambino family. And from what I've read about this guy, the reason he's like, I guess, the single most I won't say prolific, but the single most successful informant in FBI history, because this guy was so tied in with the mob, and they were giving him money, And the mob was actually extorting Blue Trick. They were extorting him for money. So, a mob does that. They put the pressure on you and they extort you for money. We got stuff hanging over your head, so you better pay us. Kind of the blackmail thing, the extortion thing. And because they were extorting him, they never thought in a million years that he would take all that information and all the stuff that they were doing to him and use it to wear wires and do things like that. And this guy led to 35 different mob guys getting indicted, okay, and going to prison. It was a huge success for the FBI, but Blue Trick was a guy that the mob never saw him coming as an informant. They got real comfortable with him, and the way that he ended up being, getting that bounty on his head was because he was tied up with that. So you've got this whole chain here with all these guys that were tied to organized crime, and it goes, directly goes, and the evidence goes all the way back to, John Gotti Jr. and the Gambino family, okay? Then you've got the David Kenner part of it. Now, we talked about the guys that own the club. Now let's talk about the difference between owning a club, because what you do when you own a club is you made a deal with the person who leases the building. Now you got a building. Now you're going to have a club, which means you're going to have waiters and waitresses, and you're going to play some music, and you're going to get some entertainment. But what's the one thing you're missing? Kazi, what's the one thing you're missing out of that equation? What do you need to make a nightclub successful?
You know what? I lost my train of thought here. I'm looking at the comments here. We got the couple of people that are from, this conspiracy Tupac Alive channel that goes all deep, deep, deep in. So I kind of lost my train of thought. So if you could,
oh, no worries.
if you could
Well,
repeat yourself
what
again.
you need, well, it's all right. If you got a building and you got a business and you got the waiters and the waitresses and you got the DJ, you got everything there, and you got the lease, and you got everything straight, what's the last part you need to make a nightclub successful?
You need a liquor license.
Boom. You need the booze, right? That's what it's all about. So you're going to make your money. DJ's not going to make your money. He's an expense. Waiters and waitresses are expenses. So you have to have the liquor. And to get the liquor, you have to have a liquor license. And the liquor license, according to the documents that we have exclusive here to RJ and Kazi, and if you want to put it up, we'll show you. We'll show you the document.
Absolutely. Here we go.
Check it out. Now, what you're about to see is an investigation report that came from the State of Nevada Liquor Control Board. And what they do is they do investigations on the liquor license and nightclubs that are running in the state of Nevada. Now, they go out and they do what's called a premise check. Whenever they want to open up a nightclub, one of the things they do before they grant the liquor license to the nightclub, because remember I said you had to have everything already set up. You got the waiters, got the waitresses, got the management, got the lease, got the club, got the signs. You have everything set up. You just need the liquor license. Well, before they're going to give you a liquor license there at that club, okay, you definitely have to clear these guys. And these guys are the state control board. These are the guys who do that. So they send investigators to go in there. Now, if you look at the yellow highlighted section, okay, as they were interviewing people that were the management for that company, they said that the people that were running the nightclub, again, the managers and the staff, were working for a company by the name of Mookie Management, going in one of the dumbest names I've ever heard. But anyway, Mookie Management was the company. Mookie Management was the company that paid for the liquor license, okay? And that's really important because what do you have in a nightclub if you don't have a liquor license? You got nothing. I mean, who's the most important player at the table when it comes to this four square? If you go back to the drawing and you got the four squares around Club 662, of those four parts, who's the most important player? I would say arguably the person that pays for the liquor license, because you don't have much of a nightclub if you're not serving liquor, okay, honestly. So Mookie Management was the company that was involved with it, okay? And according to the investigators here that were in this control board and were doing the premises check, Mookie Management was going to handle the liquor license, and they were going to then go to a person that was going to take it over there. And I guess that person was Tammy Hawkins. Now, have we heard that name before? Hell yeah, we've heard that name before. Tammy Hawkins, we know who she is, Suge's baby mama. And Tammy Hawkins is also one of the people that Greg Kading had that snitched out Poochie Faust, allegedly, for the alleged hit on Biggie, if you believe what Greg Kading is selling. So, and there she is. There's her picture right there. That's Tammy Hawkins. And she was the one that's going to take it over from Mookie Management. But Mookie Management, and according to the state investigators, Mookie Management was related to the people from New York, the New York crew, as they called them there. So let's jump back now that we've seen that document. We understand what Mookie Management is. Let's jump back to our chart for a quick sec, Kaz.
Okay, that's there. You got it up.
Okay. So now that we see Mookie Management, oh, you know what we really need to do? I'm sorry. We need to jump back for a minute, and let's go to the next 662 slide, the one that's from the LAPD.
There we go. Let me go and blow.
All right.
Let me blow that up real quick before you touch on it real quick, so people could get a little bit better view of that. There you go.
Okay, there you go. All right, that's the one. You guys got to check it out. That Mookie Management was also referred to in the Ken Knox logs. Now, for you, again, that have watched Battle for Compton, you know who Ken Knox is. If you don't, Ken Knox was a police officer that was assigned to investigate Can-Am Studios around September of 1996, right around the time that Tupac was shot and killed. If you notice, 6 days before Tupac was shot, you're talking September 10th of that same year, 1996, they got a telephone call. The LAPD got a phone call from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department regarding Suge Knight and regarding Club 662. If you scroll down to the part that, or look down to the part, you don't have to scroll anything, just look down to the part down there where they talk about Club 662. And what is it that the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police told the LAPD? They advised that Death Row started a management company by the name of what? Mookie Management. And who was going to be the CEO? David Kenner. Now, we all know about David Kenner, and we know that he was partners with Suge Knight in Death Row Records. But what do we also know about David Kenner? Let's go back to our main slide now. Okay, so we've got two different documents, the LAPD records and the State Alcohol Control Board records, that both confirmed that Mookie Management was going to be running things at Club 662. Now, if you go back to our main diagram, can you jump back to that?
Mm-hmm.
Jump back to our main diagram. What you'll see about David Kenner, and it kind of gets overlooked from time to time, but David Kenner was directly related to doing work for the Genovese crime family. David Kenner represented many of the mobsters in the Genovese crime family. So David Kenner's affiliations with the mob run deep, along with Michael Bluetritz. You've got two different crime families now associated with Club 662. Remember how I was saying that the word mob really kind of makes a difference here? You've already got two crime families directly associated with running a Club 662. You got David Kenner tied up with the Genovese crime family, and you got Michael Bluetritz tied up with the Gambino crime family. Well, if that wasn't bad enough, okay, look down at the bottom and you see George Kalisis there, Helen Thomas, the owner, her husband, Carl Thomas, who was the one who got the lease on the nightclub, was himself tied up with the Chicago mob. And we know that because he was indicted along with many of the mobsters in what they called the Stardust Hotel scandal, where they had a bunch of money laundering. I think he got convicted of like money laundering $4 million or something like that, and just skimming it off the top of the Stardust Hotel. And that was what Carl Thomas was indicted for. He's dead. Helen Thomas was his widow. She got control of the leases on that property. And so she's the one who made a deal. Suge Knight could never talk to Helen Thomas directly. Suge Knight had to deal directly with George Kalisis. And everybody else that wanted to do anything with Club 662, dealt, especially with the lease on the property and being subtenants and renting the place out, they all had to deal with George Kalisis. So it is no mistake, nor is it any coincidence at all, that they would have a meeting with the security guards talking about something that was going to happen at Club 662 at George Calisa's office, and Frank Alexander 13 years ago named that name when nobody else knew who George Calisis was, right, Kazi? I mean, no, who knew who George Calisis was?
Nobody. I mean, from what I understand, nobody knew about
Yeah,
Khalees until
I yeah, assassination was, I think, the first time George Calisis' name was ever brought into the public media at that point. But George Calisis was the guy who owned it, or what owned it, who represented Helen Thomas. She owned the lease on it. All of Suge Knight's involvement was, okay, other than the fact that he was tacitly involved with David Kenner as partners in Death Row, and some money may have gone to David Kenner and all that, um, was to provide the entertainment. And that's not a small thing. If you have big name entertainers that are entertaining in a nightclub, sales at that nightclub will go through the roof. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, that would be the place to be. And that's why it's, Kazi, I'm thinking about it. It was kind of ahead of its time.
yeah, absolutely.
Be- because think about how many Vegas casinos now, they do these, what they call residencies,
Right.
where they have like Def Leppard shows up there and they just like live there for the year and do all their shows there. And Celine Dion does shows and Garth Brooks does shows, and they do shows like all year. Well, Death Row Records was kind of like going to be in residence at Club 662. So if you wanted to go catch your daily dose of good hip hop, or Death Row hip hop anyway, you could go to Club 662, and I think they were like kind of ahead of their time, right?
Right. Can you touch on
You
can you touch on the payments that Suge Knight was going to receive?
Well, yeah, how much he made. Well, Suge Knight really wanted to get involved with Club 662, and according to the LA Times, Suge Knight spent, and this is what they got from the FBI, that Suge Knight spent $800,000 trying to pay off the Gambinos and the Genovese and whoever else, the mob, to try to get some hold of some part of Club 662. Because remember, if you look at this whole the four sides of that building, the four brown sides there, three of those are controlled by the mob. Three of those, other than the entertainment, and the entertainers just get paid, but that doesn't mean they have an ownership stake in the club. So he spent $800,000 trying to bribe his way into getting in good with these mob guys. And, which they're happy to take your money. It doesn't mean they're going to do anything for you, but they're happy to take your money and get them involved. Now you understand, though, by looking at this chart, exactly who the mob people were that the LA Times said that Suge Knight was paying out. $800,000 is not chump change. And he was paying that money out to try to get an ownership stake in one of those other three. Not the entertainment side, but one of those other three, because one of those other three would be a way to make money. If you're an entertainer, sure, they can pay you, but you're not going to get a cut of the liquor sales. You're not going to cut of the door. You're not getting any real money that was a profit participation motive. You're not getting any of that. So, you get a flat fee for your entertainers, and that's the extent of it. So he wanted part of that other 3/4 of that pie. And he paid $800,000 to get it, but he never could get it. I mean, and Kazi, let's talk for a minute about what you're talking about with regards to, Suge Knight's background and why it would be difficult for him to get involved in a nightclub at all.
Well, of course he was a felon, but I think the biggest question of them all is, don't you think it's kind of strange that with all the money that Death Row Records was making, that they would invest in something that would make really nothing in comparison to their record sales?
Well, yeah, I mean but here's that they, I don't really know why. I know that when bands tour, they do make a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Tupac was touring all over the place. Wanted to go to Europe and tour in Europe when Digital Underground did that. I mean, they made money off the record sales, but they made a shit ton of money doing the tours too. You go over to Japan, 30,000 people want to see your show. That's a lot of door. That's a lot of money that you can get.
But what's the max occupancy of a small building like 662? How many shows are you going to have to really do to generate the kind of money that you think that you could do in revenue? But
right, and that's why he wanted a piece of the door. That's because they're going to do much more in alcohol sales than they are in the door. I mean, you got 1,000 people that come and go. Let's say in one night you got 1,000 people, each one pays $20. You got $20,000. That's it. That's the cap.
Do you think
But
ultimately it was going to be a
alcohol
drug front?
sales, what's that?
I
Say
said, do
again?
you ultimately think that it was just a drug front and not really just kind of a money laundering business is what it really was? Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, look at the players involved. I mean, doesn't it just kind of scream that? I mean, you've got a club, and I was just breaking the numbers down. $20,000 from the door. Let's say you do $20,000 in alcohol sales. Let's say the club stays open 3 days a week: Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Probably Sundays are dark anyway. So what do you got? I mean, the max you got maybe $100,000 a weekend, and then you got to pay people out of that, and you got to pay your expenses in the lease and kick the money down. It is not a very profitable business. A lot of bars are not as profitable as one would think they are. Their margins are better than like a restaurant, but because what you can charge for alcohol, by the pour and all that. But the money just isn't quite as bad, as good as it could be. And so, with considering all the players that were involved, everybody wanted a piece of the action there. I would say that it's the perfect opportunity to launder money, to take money in there, maybe buy a bunch of stuff, or pay the artist an inflated amount of money, and you've laundered it. So, Suge Knight or David Kenner or somebody takes the money that's being poured into the nightclub to pay the artists, or however they're going to do that, but to wash the money. Now, the only thing again is I'm working it out. The only problem with money laundering is you have to kind of understand what the money laundering scheme would be. And then here's why I say that, cause we talked last week. We talked a little bit about um, Universal Music Group and album sales, and I put the idea out there that maybe Death Row didn't really sell 80 million copies of an album. Maybe they sold 50, maybe they sold 60, but 20 million copies of an album at $10 a spot is $300 million. Okay, that 30 million copies, the difference between 50 million and 80 million is $300 million. And so if all you have to do is just change the 5 to an 8, and you've inflated it, now you've got room to move $300 million worth of money through a business. And that's a perfect money laundering thing. It's probably one of the most simple examples you can use of money laundering. With Club 662, I'm not sure, because, like you said, it wasn't a huge venue. It didn't have a lot of that. Now, if you're making 100,000 a week, that's $400,000 a month. That might be enough to actually move a little bit of money through there. It's certainly not going to be the hundreds of millions of dollars that you would launder through like a record company, but it would definitely be something that I would think you would launder through a business like that. So I guess you could. I had to work the math out in my head to kind of get where you're at. See, you're smarter than I am. You already got there. I had to work it out. I had to do the math, but but yeah, I think you're right. I think there is a good opportunity, because if you got, like I said, on a great weekend, if Tupac was there and you had 1,000 people that paid $20 a head, it's $20,000. You do that 3 nights at $60,000. Let's say you make that same amount of money in the bar tab, that's another 60. So you got 120, and maybe there's some other nonsense that goes on there. But you've got you're making $120,000 a week. That's a $500,000 a month, $500,000 a month times 12 months. That's $6 million a year. So if you can keep it busy, you can do it. I could see where you could get $6 million, maybe loaning the bar money and then paying it out in alcohol sales, or trumped up alcohol sales. If they can inflate record prices, why can't they inflate door count? Every show was sold out. You know, and we generated that kind of money. So definitely, I think that would be the thing. Um, Before we move into any more of that, though, I was behind, dude. I was way behind. I was thinking nobody was commenting, and you're talking about all these conspiracy comments. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah,
Okay, hold on.
I kind of I kind
All
of I
right.
kind of stay tuned into the comments there because you have. I mean, to me, it's okay. Anybody can come to the channel. Everybody's welcome. But then there's gonna start becoming some comments about conspiracies and then Tupac being alive, and it's just kind of a distraction from the subject that we're talking about. So I think a lot of times you got these guys from other channels that don't,
Oh yeah,
for
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
reason
It's noise. It's noise. But I will say there's a couple of things like this. Okay. So um, the da, 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 there. Okay. Somebody said something about you have to buy the alcohol. Well, I mean, if you guys have ever bought alcohol, I mean, I like for example, a bottle of Southern Comfort, which is a bourbon. Um, you can get a bottle of that for $15. You sell it by the pour. I think you can get 25 or 30 pours out of it at $5 a piece. So you buy the bottle for $15 and you get $150 out of the bottle. That's a good markup. So yeah, you got to be able to buy the alcohol, but what you buy the alcohol for and what you sell the alcohol for is way different.
Right.
Okay, honestly, you go to the grocery store. Just do, guys, go out and do your own homework. Go to the grocery store, find out how much a bottle of Crown Royal really costs. Probably $35. You go to a nightclub, you get a shot of Crown Royal. It's going to cost you $10, $11 a shot. You go to New York, those things are like $20 a shot for Crown Royal. And so you figure $20 a shot, and you got 40 pours out of that. You're making $8,000 off a bottle that costs you $40 to buy. So there's a lot of markup in uh, in alcohol, that's for sure. So let's go down here. Let's check out what people are talking about here. Let's see here. Okay, Easy Boy Sunny 88, man, he's like the Patton guy. He says, do you believe that Malcolm Patton backstage behind Frank and Pac? I don't know. What do you think? What's your take on it?
Are you're speaking to me? No, honestly speaking with you, I couldn't really tell you. I mean, I haven't really watched the videos too much to really speculate on who is who and what did, who did what, but I got a pretty good
Well,
idea of all the players, so to speak.
Well, it would be interesting if he had that level of access. Most people that were downstairs in Mike Tyson's dressing room, you had to be cleared to go down there. So unless Malcolm Patton just suddenly decided to go work for the hotel and that was part of his cover, which would be really a new thing for me. That would be a whole new wrinkle in this thing. Unless he was going to do that, or he was part of the entourage and Suge Knight and everybody knew who Patton was, it's kind of hard to put him there. I mean, that's like the people saying that Greg Kading was at the MGM dressed up as a Las Vegas police officer. I mean, you really got to go out there, right? You really got to go out there.
And at that point, I think that's when the conspiracy may get a little too deep. It's kind of like fast forwarding in time when you look at all these things. And I would only say too that you also have all the cameras in there, so I think everybody who was there that night had to have some idea that they were being recorded.
Yeah. And again, I actually think that unless, I mean, you got to think about it. This is kind of funny. Let's assume for a minute that Greg Kading could get his hands on a Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department uniform. He doesn't work for Las Vegas Police because he works for LAPD. And I doubt very much LAPD is going to be too keen about him running around in a Vegas Metropolitan uniform. And I don't think that Vegas is going to be particularly keen about LAPD cops because Metro cops and LAPD cops don't get along to begin with. But let's suppose, okay, let's forget about all that for a minute. And let's just think that maybe Kading had this uniform hanging around and he decided he was going to wear a Vegas uniform and show up at the MGM. You don't think he knew there were cameras in there? I mean, come on, guys. I mean, just, oh, please. I mean, okay, because I mean, it just gets to that point. If you do it out and you work the math out, you got to think about, maybe Greg Kading bought a bicycle and dressed up in a Vegas Metropolitan uniform.
Oh.
Woo! Yeah, okay, yeah. I just picture Greg Kading riding down the street and ding, ding, ding on a little bike, and then shows up at the MGM to do what exactly? I mean, what, to witness it? I don't know. So no, I don't think Greg Kading was at the MGM. So let's just get that out there. And but the Malcolm Patton thing, the dude does look like, I mean, the dude behind him does kind of look like Malcolm Patton. Again, it just, the problem you got to work out, and this is what it's all about, Kazi. I mean, it's connecting the dots. You've got to have hard connections between these facts. If some dude was at Mike Tyson's dressing room downstairs, he had to have a way to get in there. And I don't think that Malcolm and Danny Patton were like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, where they're going through with their secret card readers and, getting behind security to get in there. I mean, maybe somebody let him in. That would be even more. See, that's when it becomes even more conspiracy that I'm willing to deal with at that point, because you got, now you're talking about people letting him in the doors and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, could it be? Yeah, but you'd have to explain to me how he got there to begin with, how he got in, because that's not just on the floor at the MGM. That's not out in the casino area. That's down in Mike Tyson's personal dressing room, where members of the media had cards and people and entourage. You had to be let in by somebody. So that means that either Malcolm Patton got let in. Then you got to ask yourself, why would he be there? If their job was to go out and they were going to go shoot the guy, why are they there? Why be it? Why? So that they could really clearly see who you are? Okay. Does that make any sense? That doesn't make any sense. So again, could it be? I won't say no, because I have no absolute proof it's not, but it's very hard for me to get there. You guys work hard. Get me there. Let's see what we can do. Okay. Now, I am going to address something like that, because this is a kind of a put up or shut up moment, and I do call out the bullshit when I see it. Wired Up TV says RJ Bond is known for lying and putting out bull crap. Well, your First Amendment rights are definitely secured. You can say what you feel about it. You're free to not watch the channels or watch the movies. But I'd actually like to know what exactly it is you think that I've lied about. Specifically, call me out on a lie. Specifically, say something that I have said that is an out-and-out falsehood, and let's get it out there, okay? Otherwise, shut the fuck up, okay? So let's just put it out there like that. Let's see here. Wired Up TV says he admitted himself he doesn't believe the whole Patton theory anymore. I said that? Kazi, have you ever heard me say that?
No, I've never heard you say that before.
Yeah, no, I have never said that. In fact, to my detriment, even in Randall Sullivan's book, to my detriment, there's a lot of people who think I'm absolutely nuts because I'm still willing to entertain that the Patton theory might have some traction to it. I certainly think that the Patton theory doesn't have any less evidence than the Orlando Anderson. The only difference between the Pattons and Orlando Anderson is that there was a skirmish with Orlando Anderson earlier in the evening. If the Pattons had been the guy that they beat up earlier in the evening, I guess the Pattons would be the one in the car, right? I guess, because one obviously means the other. I just, again, like I said, I think that I've taken a lot of hits from a credibility standpoint for backing the Patton theory, because I don't have any evidence to prove that it's not true. What have you seen, Kazi? Have you seen anything that's absolutely said, oh, it absolutely can't be?
Well, I think more than anything, I think what people get hung up on is the whole, little half-dead wrote Brenda's got a baby. But the thing is that, he didn't have to write it to be lying. I mean, if he didn't write it, he could be lying that he did write it. I mean, who knows the story? It could be numerous things. It's just that I think people get everything misconstrued and they take everything out of context. So they'll try to find one little thing to discredit one whole, the whole letter.
Well, but here's the thing about it, and this is what people don't get about the letter. I know we're getting a little tangential here on this, but here's the thing about it. This is where I don't get what people are talking about with the letter. If you read the letter, what you got to understand is, if you believe that the Pattons were the ones who dictated it to Robert Saria's sister, who wrote the letter, and I've heard from her that is absolutely true, that what she says is really the truth. The other person that claimed that they were involved with it wasn't involved with it at all. That was all a bunch of nonsense propaganda that was put out by Greg Kading's group. But at the people that I know, if she did that, she took dictation from the Pattons. Okay. The Pattons are the ones who said it's funny because they're confessing to something, but they're really throwing little Half-Dead under the bus. Okay. At the end of the day, that's what they're doing. So anything about little Half-Dead claiming to have written Brenda's Got a Baby, anything about little Half-Dead at all, about any of that thing mentioned in the letter, is the Pattons trying to scapegoat little Half-Dead. So it's perfectly legitimate to be able to separate the two and say, well, we don't know about the Pattons, but maybe Little Half Dead didn't do it. The Pattons are the ones who said Little Half Dead did it. Okay? I'm not saying he did. I'm not even saying that they're right about that. I think that sometimes if you're going to write a confession letter, isn't that what they did with Orlando Anderson? Like blame the other guy? Keith Davis says, oh, yeah, weird, but he did it. I was there, but he did it. What's the fucking difference between the confession letter and the Pattons saying the Little Half Dead did it and Keith Davis saying Orlando Anderson did it? What's the fucking difference? Why don't people understand this, Kazi, about the letter? I mean, does that not make sense that the two can be mutually exclusive?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So yes, you've got Little Half Dead. I mean, let's make sure we're right about this. Let's get the facts straight. The confession letter was presented to Chris Blatchford by the Pattons. They were the ones who were going to interview, and they were going to say all of this on television. But instead, they gave him a letter. And the letter said, yeah, we know about all this stuff, and he did it. Just like Keith Davis said, oh, yeah, man, we know all about all this stuff, but he did it. I didn't do anything. He did it. Okay? No difference. Okay? No difference. So to say that somehow the Pattons might have been involved and to say maybe or maybe not about Little Half Dead, I think all of the arguments about Little Half Dead, we know he didn't write Brenda's Got a Baby. Come on. And if we say, yeah, he lied about it, he may have claimed that he did to make himself look good or to try to take credit for something he didn't do, that, Tupac wasn't a smart guy. He was just a guy that ripped off somebody else. He's not the only person that's ever claimed that. Let's be honest. Okay? But to sit there and say, oh, no, none of it can be true. The whole letter is absurd because Little Half Dead didn't do it. You're missing the point. I mean, you're just missing the point. So, and maybe it's time to get back into that a little bit deeper, but that's what things, and I've never stepped back from that. In fact, I'm soon to be doubling down on it. So we'll definitely, that's and Easy Boy Sunny 88, the confession letter said Little Half Dead pulled the trigger and killed Pac. RJ didn't say that. Thank you. Okay, just what I've been saying all along. So, all right. So let's check on down here. Sorry, I got on a bit of a rant, didn't I?
Yeah, I think sometimes certain people will make certain statements because they want to distract you and get you off track of what you're really trying to focus on.
Yeah. Let's see here. Well, and again, me, I just get into a rant. I get in my own zone. I don't think I'm paying attention. I get into my own zone and just ramble. Let's see, which I didn't want to do. I want to talk to you about things. I don't want to just ramble. So shut me the fuck up when I get rambling. All right?
Oh, you're good, man.
Yeah. Let's see here. Jaquel Thomas. Jaquel, is that how you pronounce it? Jaquel? Welcome to the show. Glad you're there, man. Did I miss anybody that's Kazi? Shout out anybody that I've missed because I don't know. I mean, we get the same players.
Yeah.
And by the way, we got more than 25 knuckleheads, which is really nice.
Yeah, 50,
you know,
got 58 knuckleheads.
58 knuckleheads, man. That's okay. The knuckleheads are doing it. And I see Miss Machiavelli chimed in from Dublin. What's up? Thank you. To fuck them haters. You're always one of the few people who bring facts and paperwork with your words. As you say, fuck what you know. It's what you can prove. Isn't that right, Kazi? I mean, that's why we're doing all this with Club 662, because you guys deserve to know what it is that people are talking about. And when you hear bullshit in a book, or you hear bullshit from Suge Knight, or you hear bullshit from somebody else that wants to tell you a story about Club 662 and how Suge was going to own Club 662 and all that, take a look at that chart right there and ask yourself this question. Who was going to let him run Club 662? Name one of those fuckers that are on that sheet that was going to let Suge Knight get anywhere near money making from Club 662. Honestly. Maybe David Kenner, maybe Tammy Hawkins, because Tammy Hawkins was the one, I think you got that, don't you? That she incorporated Club 662?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We can actually jump into that right now. So,
throw that up there, okay?
All right, let's go. Well, actually, you wanna harp on this one here. You want to go ahead and go straight to this one here, which is going to be the document that was the incorporation of 662. So let me go and blow it up a little bit so you can see that. I'll go ahead.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah. Look at this. This is an incorporation in the state of California for a company by the name of Club 662. It was a 662 Incorporated. It was incorporated in June or July. Was it July there? I think it's July. July of 1996. 2 months before Tupac showed up on the scene in Vegas, Tammy Hawkins, Teresa Swan, whatever you want to call her name, she was the one who incorporated Club 662 as the president, vice president, and treasurer of 662 Incorporated. So at some point, Club 662 was going to run the management away from Mookie management, maybe, or was going to somehow absorb Mookie management, or maybe Mookie management was going to be an alias used by this Club 662 Incorporated. But I find it very interesting, and we talked about this on the podcast. I don't want to give it away, but you got to think about for a minute. If Tammy Hawkins ratted out Suge Knight and Poochie Faust like Greg Kading wants to put out there, if she really ratted them out, she must have been really pissed off because she must have been really disappointed about what happened with Club 662 because she was going to run that club. And as you said, Kazi, like right after the shooting and Suge went to prison, what happened with Club 662?
Nothing. Everybody became a trailblazer, and the club became of nothing. Think about it. After
Yeah,
Tupac
like a bunch of gypsies.
right
They
after
were like a bunch of fucking gypsies. They just left.
after Tupac died, if they wanted to continue the club, if that was their real intention to continue the club, they had many more musical acts that could have taken over Tupac Shakur's spot, so to speak. Even though they were nowhere near as popular as him, they still had the ability to put more musical talent in front of.
Absolutely. I mean, what was Snoop? Chopped liver.
Right.
I mean, he was there. They had the whole dog pound. They had everybody else. They still had other people that were with Pac. I mean, they even had the Outlaws at that time. So they had all those people that were be able to take over and run that club and do a good thing there. I saw Connoisseur actually asked if Teresa Swan was Sharitha Knight. No, those are two different people. Tammy Hawkins was another one of Suge Knight's, I would call baby mamas. I hate using that word, but she got together with Suge Knight, hooked up with him. He got her knocked up. She had a kid that was one of Suge Knight's many kids. And I think he was still married. In fact, I know he was still married to Sharitha Knight at the time, who seemed to either be okay with it or they were estranged or whatever the reason was. But and we'll talk a little bit more about how that all shook up in a minute. But no, they're not the same person all the way
And
around.
let's talk about the
Okay.
lack of transparency when it came down to finding out who was the manager, who was the assistant manager, and whoever was not the manager. It just seems like that night when they started doing the investigations or
Well,
thereafter.
yeah, let's go back. Yeah, let's go back to the bar check. So you got the control board. They come in and they're doing an investigation. They show up one rosy day. They show up at Club 662, and there's a bunch of people cleaning glasses and cleaning off tables, and they're getting things ready to go. And somebody was sleeping in the back, and they interviewed a guy. Not that slide, but the other slide. Go to the other bar check slide. They go and they talk to some cat there. And I'll get there. Not that one, Kazi, but the other bar check slide, the other slide, not that one, the other one. There you go, that one right there. So they go and they interview this guy by the name of Theodore Lyticus or however his name is there, and he claimed to be the manager of the nightclub of Club 662. But suddenly, like the minute that they started talking to him and said that he was the manager, suddenly he like magically became the assistant manager, and he really wasn't the manager. He was an assistant manager, and there was another guy that was actually the real manager of Club 662. And that was the guy by the name of Randall Diversion. Okay, so let's jump back to. Do I have Diversion's name? I got Diversion's name on the master slide, don't I?
Yeah, Divergent's name is in the master slide here, but I guess if you want to read it verbatim here, I asked him about Tammy Hawkins, who was mentioned in the RJ as the manager, and he told us that she will be the manager. He undoubtedly part of the management team from New York that we received a complaint about on June 15th. He
Okay, stop there for a minute. Stop there for a minute. He was undoubtedly part of the management team from New York. Why the hell is there a management team from New York in the middle of Club 662, guys? It's in Vegas. Who is the management team from New York? And if there was already such a big beef between East Coast and West Coast, why would a rap club have New York people managing it? I mean, okay, how much sense does that make? Okay, unless you understand what we're trying to explain to you. Okay, but I want to point that out. This is the quote unquote New York team that's managing. Go ahead and read the rest. I'm sorry.
So I think I left off at he obtained a work card for security on June 23rd, the day of Detective Calaveri's visit. He presented us with a New York driver license when we asked for ID. If I had to put two and two together, I would say that Michael Blutrich and whoever he was connected with, whether it be mob or non-mob, were actually the ones that sent the New York management team
Yeah,
to be down
they're
there.
going to put their cronies in there to make sure that that money's flowing in the right direction, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're going to put their cronies. So let's talk about the other cronies. Since this guy was the assistant manager, let's talk about who the real manager was. This guy's a real prize. Let's pull the slide on Randall Diversion.
Okay. I got it right there. It's ready to go.
All right. So I'm seeing the there it is right there. Okay. It's too small for me to read. You want to read that, Klaus?
Yeah, absolutely. So it says here that he's a expired non-gaming WC for Excalibur as a beverage server, now on the employee list. Previous WC as a doorman at Shark Club and several others. AA is
Yeah,
current.
work WC is work card, and AA is the alcohol awareness training. That card is current.
Okay.
You have to have those to work at a bar.
Obviously, in a position of authority, paid fees for liquor license as a representative of Mookie Management. There you go, key. Paid fees for liquor license as a representative of Mookie Management. Gave orders to Caltaldo, and it said here that his wife Kelly Day was in position of authority, and his sister Carrie was lounging in the back office. Gaming WC revoked in 1986 by Gaming Control Board, not reinstated. Now here's the big kicker. Currently has three outstanding warrants: two for contempt of court out, one for false info to a police officer, registered for attempted burglary, um, not required to register for battery, multiple priors, including above offenses: probation violation, DUI, attempting to evade a police officer, and reckless driving. I believe this is from an FBI document number 106673 CAO.
Yeah. Okay. So now you got a guy that's running Club 662 that's got three outstanding warrants for him, a real upstanding citizen. My question is, I just don't understand why they didn't call the cops and just drag his ass to jail right then, straight up, you know.
Right.
So, yeah, so this is Diversion. This is the guy who the New York mob guys put as a front guy because this is like if you had to have a resume to be in the mob, this is like your mob resume right here. Okay, outstanding warrants, lots of crimes, lots of criminal background. Perfect, you're hired immediately. Member of the mob right away. And so yes, and thank you, Jaquel Thomas. We'll get to the question in just a quick second. But yeah, I mean, this is the guy that they put in. This guy Diversion, a real piece of work, real criminal piece of work. They're the ones that put him in charge of making sure that that place gets managed. And why do you think that was? Okay, we just talked about it a minute ago. It's because he's the one who makes sure that whatever money runs in and out of that club gets into the right hands, if you will.
Right. Just for him to
So
oversee, but there's just so many layers that it's going to be really hard to trace who the original person is that's in charge of this whole operation. So I think that when it becomes harder when there's just, like I said, too many layers, way too many layers.
yeah, well, that's funny. Easy Boy Sunny 8. They use a guy by the name of Diversion as a diversion. Yeah, no shit. Yeah, exactly. Well said. Hey, check this out. Jacob Thomas asked the question: is the pot case considered closed or not? Not from where I sit. Not from where Kazi sits. I think I can speak for you, Kazi, on that one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No way. No way. The only person in the world that thinks that the pot case is closed is somebody that thinks Orlando Anderson did it and, believes the Greg Kading thing about Orlando Anderson and that it was that, he did it and that was the end of the story. So they can consider the case closed. but that's just their opinion. I think there's way too little evidence to point to Orlando Anderson. There's a lot of speculation, a lot of hearsay, and a lot of people that want to chant the same chant. But it doesn't matter if a million people say the same thing. It doesn't make it true. Okay, it doesn't make it a fact.
Well,
A million people can say it doesn't make it true.
this is what I would say. And this is a problem that I always had. If this case was closed, and of course, if whoever it was that did whatever they did, if they're still alive or whatever it may be, we've never had Las Vegas come out and just say, you know what, this is true. We don't have enough evidence to close the case, but this is the truth, and let it be. They've never come out and said that before, and
Well, and they don't have to. I mean, they don't. And then the other thing too is they can close the case without a conviction. It's called closed case other. Okay, you can close an investigation and say we think we know who did it, but we can't convict them, and we can't even try them because they're dead. We think we know who did it, but we're going to close the case as case closed. I mean, guys, there's a reason. Okay, there's a reason that they haven't closed the file. I mean, and I go back to this. I say this all the time. Kazi, do you think that like on September 15th, that all the cops that get together in Metro and they go upstairs and they get down in their homicide room and they say, okay, guys, the next 24 hours are going to be bananas for us because we're going to have to listen to all the idiots that want to talk about Tupac Shakur. They're going to call our office and they're going to bug us, and the news people are going to start asking questions again. And here we go again with all this questions, and we don't want to talk about it and all the speculation. We got to relive this thing every year. Okay, it's like Halloween every year. We got to go through this nonsense every year. I mean, do you really think that they want to deal with this every year if they could just close it and then put it to bed and it's done?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Why have to deal with this same, or even get any kind of backlash, even though it doesn't really affect them in any really real way. But I mean, I just see it as if they wanted to wrap this up and just end it, they would have done it already.
Yeah, 100%. It would have been over with. Okay, you know, and that's the thing about it. I mean, these guys don't want to fuck around with a case that's a cold case, and they could just do everybody a favor and just close it, right? I mean, that they could do that, but they haven't. And I believe there's a reason they haven't. And I believe that the reason they haven't is because we keep hearing about cases that are 20, 25 years old. I was just watching the news, another one where there was a piece of information that dropped and they were able to figure out like a 25-year-old murder, even older, okay? Because DNA evidence gets better, a lot of criminal processing. And then, of course, there's always the deathbed confessions. Russ Poole said that it would be a deathbed confession that would turn the whole case around, okay? And you got people getting to be that age now where that might mean something. So, that's why Vegas, I believe, hasn't closed the case. I think that Vegas actually knows something. Can you imagine that? They actually know something we don't. And they're not going to tell, and they're not going to give it up. Because look what happened when Russ Poole and I went to the LAPD with information about the confessional letter. What happened? They leaked it. They leaked it out. They gave it to Greg Kading, who gave it to Anton Beatty so that they could run a counter spin to get ahead of the story before it actually could hit and get any traction. They got ahead of it and started trying to shit all over it before it ever saw the light of
Well,
day.
Greg Kading wants to keep alive his theory because he gets to sell books and gets to make miniseries.
Yeah, yeah, that too. Hey, and by the way, I gotta say a special shout out to Yeezy. Yo, what's up, Yeezy? Welcome to the knuckleheads. The ever growing legion of knuckleheads. So I think I'm gonna have to get T-shirts made up and be like, I'm one of the original 25 knuckleheads, because you're gonna be glad you are. Listen to me, guys. You're gonna be glad. Not even a year from now, probably, you're going to be really glad that you were one of 25 knuckleheads. I promise you. It's going to be like a badge of honor. Okay? Just hang tight.
There's going to be some good things coming down the pipeline. I wish I could speak on it. I mean, but of course, you shared that information with me. But I think more than anything, that on the other side, there's going to be no new information that's going to be coming down the pipeline. And over here, there's going to be some new things coming along the way. So stay looking out for that.
Absolutely. Well, so let's go back to our main chart just to make sure that we wrapped everything up. That, clearly what you've heard about Club 662 isn't exactly bona fide, okay? You know, if you look around at all the people that were tied up in Club 662, what real opportunity do you think that Suge Knight had? I mean, he sure tried to buy his way into it. We know that to be a fact, but it was unsuccessful because clearly it didn't run. The big question that I have after it was all over is why did they walk away from it? If it was a legitimate club and it was actually a moneymaker for them and they could make $6 million a year on a club, after Suge went to prison, and after that, I mean, like Kazi said, the artists were still there, the talent was still there. You know, I know that I think that it was right about that time that Pfeffer and Blue Trick started getting into legal trouble about that same time. So, you know, thank you, Whiskey to Don. Shout out. You know, can I tell you something, Kazi? This is like the first time I've ever actually seen these, like the $5 and the $2 things. I go to other YouTube channels and they're like guys in a boat with some hot chick and they're throwing $100, $20. They're throwing, I mean, it's stupid. They do a live show. I'm watching, I'm going, why are these people giving all this money? I mean, my God, you know, it's like $100. Oh, thank you for the low. Thank you for the $100. And they're just throwing it. And all this guy's doing is sitting in a fucking boat. I don't, dude, I don't get it. I mean, maybe I just need to go buy a boat, but go buy a boat and, you know, put a hot chick in there or something like that and just let them throw $100 bills at me. Make it rain. Make it rain.
Yeah, hey,
You know,
thank you for the donations. We certainly appreciate it.
absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic. No, I'm glad, man. That's every little bit helps. You know, we never and but let's put it out there, guys. We have never asked. I think it's awesome that you guys are doing it. We've never asked. I don't think I mean, the only thing I say is if you like my movies, go see a copy of it. Go get a copy of it. Go download it on Amazon, you know, .com. Watch it at your house. You know, watch Battle for Compton. If you want to download the other movies, there's probably like 30,000 BitTorrent sites out there that have copies of my movie you can get for free. You know, you can download it or whatever. You know, I'm not pursuing a lot of that stuff anymore just because the movies have been out there so long. And I think it's more important now that you guys get the education to counter the fools that are coming out like Keith Davis and things like that that have alternative things to say. You'll have enough information, enough background knowledge that you can speak educated about these things. The facts speak for themselves, and that's what we're about. We're about this. We're about who really was tied up in Club 662, and other than a money laundering operation, what good was it? And that's probably, again, when the masterminds behind it, Kenner was busy, Suge Knight went to prison, there was a lot of things. That's probably the reason why it dried up and blew away, was because that was never going to be anything substantial to begin with.
All right, so can we just put this in context and just dispel this rumor that the original owner of Club 662 is going to be Suge Knight?
I call bullshit on that.
Yeah, I do too. It wasn't ever going to be. So it was I don't know if it was just an elaborate story or if it was you know, high ambitions or whatnot, but ultimately, like I said, once it was all said and done, Tupac got killed. They could have continued with this operation. They didn't continue with this operation. So you got to ask yourself, what were the real motivations behind the opening of Club 662? And not only that, one thing that we haven't touched on yet was the whole probation thing, the whole probation about Tupac having to be there that night because he had a mandated probation, which I think we talked about in the podcast.
Yeah,
That was, unless somebody else can confirm this with paperwork and not just with words, with actual
yeah,
paperwork to prove that Tupac had gotten probation for this. But as you mentioned, he was already on parole already. So if he committed a
yeah.
crime and he would have been convicted, it would have violated his probation
That's right.
and he would have never been out to be able to go to the Club 662. But not only that, as we talked about before, when Angelo said that he didn't want to go, think about this. If he was mandated to go to perform at Club 662, that would have never been in his mind that he didn't want to go to Club 662 because he would have had no choice to go. So
Right. He didn't want to go back to jail. Let's be honest. He was scared to death of going back to prison. He did not want to go back to New York. He did not want to go to prison. So I don't care. I don't care who it is, Reggie or anybody else. I don't care who says it, unless they've got paperwork to show for it that he was actually convicted of a crime, either traffic misdemeanor. Don't matter. Show us that he was convicted of something, specifically what he was convicted of, and how the judge allowed him to cross state lines to do a public service event, okay, and do that in exchange for jail time. And by the way, we're not going to call New York and we're not going to tell, this is the court talking, by the way, we're not going to call New York and we're not going to tell them that you just violated the terms of your probation. We'll just keep all that secret for right now. That'll just be a little secret between you and the court. We won't tell New York any of that stuff because, you know, you're going to do your community service, right? No, look, motherfuckers that do community service, they pick up garbage on the side of the road. Any of you, I mean, and I'm not going to offend anybody, but I mean, I'm sure we have a few people in this crowd that listen to the show that may have had to do community service at one point or another. Okay. You know, you go there, there's a guy, you sign in, you sign up with a court approved community service agency. You sign the forms, then you get hooked up. They tell you to be there 8 o'clock in the morning. You get on the bus with your timesheet. You go to the place. You sign in. They sign your timesheet. You do 8 hours. They sign your timesheet, give you credit for so many hours, and then you move on and you do it again till your community service is done. Okay, that's community service, and you do that in lieu of jail time, so you don't have to do jail time. Okay. So it isn't going to be like, well, we're just not going to give you a conviction if you go do a public service. That's just horse shit. Okay. And yes, Kazi made a good point. Say, well, could David Kenner have pulled something like that up? Yeah, but even a judge in California only has so much that they can allow that can be used for community service, because that would be like somebody saying, well, how about instead of doing community service and picking up trash, how about I just go to my church and I sing a song at worship service and I entertain some people? Isn't that community service too? And it's not. Okay, not by how the court defines it anyway. So there's a lot more going on than that. And again, like you said, because we haven't talked about Barry's boxing, we haven't talked about the what the event was in the first place and how silly that sounds to begin with. But I think we'll save that until another time where we can dive even deeper into the mystery of Club 662
and the real intention of what that was supposed to be.
Yeah. Oh, so there's a question. Secret City Man 12, welcome to the show. I think he's a newbie. I didn't see anything from him before. Okay. But I will say, he asked a question, and the question is, do you know anything about how Yasmin Fulton knew Tupac was in danger and she told Frank Alexander to step his game up? Well, yeah, Frank talked about that. Frank talked about that a lot. How did Yasmin Fulton know that Tupac was in danger? Yasmin Fulton knew that Tupac was in danger because Yasmin Fulton knew that Tupac wanted to audit Death Row Records. Okay, now, what's probably the most hilarious thing I've ever gotten in my life is I still have the post from Greg Kading where that Greg Kading thought that when Tupac was going to audit Death Row, that it had to do with his taxes, like a tax audit. Okay, I still have that. Okay, that shows you how out of touch he was with the whole thing. That when he thought that Tupac was going to audit Death Row, that meant that it had something to do with Tupac's taxes. Okay, he didn't. Tupac was going to audit Death Row because there's a contractual thing at a record company. When you're being paid royalties on that, you have the ability to go in and look at the books of the people that are paying you the royalties and do what's called an audit, where you can go in there and find out how much money you should have made versus how much you have been paid, making sure that they're not kind of taking and saying that you only sold 10 albums when you really sold 20. That's an audit. It has nothing to do with your taxes. Okay. And that cracked me up when I read that first time. But Tupac was going to do an audit, and because Yasmin Fula was running his business office, she was handling his business affairs, she would be the one to set that up. So when he said he was going to do it, she called Frank and told Frank and Kevin Hackey that they needed to step up their game with Tupac because he was going to do an audit, and they had announced he was going to do an audit, and that was of concern to her because she knew that eventually his goal was to kind of get out of the whole Death Row scene altogether. Maybe spin off Machiavelli Records and make it something else. Maybe leave Death Row completely, go into acting, do other things. That was all in his mind, and he had already talked to her all about that. So she already knew that, and for all of those reasons is why Yasmin Fula told Frank Alexander and Kevin Hackey that they really needed to watch out for Tupac because maybe some people wouldn't be too happy about the fact that he was going to try to audit the album or audit the record label. Okay, that's what Yasmin Fula knew, that to know that he was in danger. I think anybody that was questioning Suge Knight or his business or his interests, I think they would put themselves put a target right on their back. Wouldn't you say, Kazi?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially when you're dealing with millions of dollars, and then of course
Yep.
Tupac didn't know where half of his money was at, only getting $5,000 a week. I mean, at some point you're going to get unhappy and start asking questions about where your money is. And with his personality, that was definitely coming.
Absolutely. And like you said, he couldn't keep his mouth shut about anything, so he'd make a big deal if you found that out too. Special shout out to David Diaz from Argentina. So we got Ireland, Argentina, man. We are internationally known. I love that. Now if David, if you could tell everybody from Argentina that this is like the best show you've ever listened to, and everybody in Argentina has got to listen, then maybe we'll get the Argentina market and our numbers will go up really high. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? We could do that with the Ireland market too. So we got to get some fans talking about it, get some people on the show. I think, don't you think, Kazi, though, if we make a commitment, and actually, guys, give us the feedback on this. If we set up a thing and say every Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific time, which is 11 o'clock Central, that we're going to do a live show and you guys can count on it every week, same time, and you guys can count on it, would you not tune in and tell your friends? Do you think we'll get more viewers that way? Chime in if you believe so, because I think that's the case.
Yeah, can I? I'm gonna answer a question here. So from the Spark Brain, he says if he was not happy auditing and leaving DR, why was he promoting Death Row East? I think at the time when he was promoting Death Row East, he was happy with the situation. But as in any situation, when it comes to money and you find out people are stealing from you, I think your mind changes in less than 30 seconds, if not less than 5 seconds, when you start finding out people are stealing money from you. So it doesn't matter. He wasn't obligated to Death Row East. The day he promoted it is how he felt. But I think once he started figuring out that his money was being mismanaged, that's when he may have changed his mind.
Well, and also too, Joe. I mean, you've got Papa G and everybody saying there was no Death Row East. Okay, it was an idea. It was a concept. It was like kind of like a test marketing proof of concept. Let's talk about it and see how many people are interested in it. And if there's enough interest, then we'll put the money behind it and we'll really do it. That's what Death Row East was all about. It doesn't mean that there may not have ever been a Death Row East or that they had no plans to, but I think the whole thing about the T-shirts and because it was such a big night at the awards, the music awards, and Tupac was so popular and so famous at that time, all the cameras were on him, MTV was on him, that putting on the Death Row East shirts like that's a really great way from a marketing standpoint to just find out what the buzz and what the interest is. And if you got enough people that are interested, maybe some investors that might have seen the T-shirts and go, "You're really going to do this? I'll throw some money into this." That's a good way to stir it up to engage what the interest is. It doesn't mean that you already had a building already rented to start Death Row East. Okay, and I think that's where a lot of people get it confused. That how could it be true? How could Tupac be promoting Death Row East and Suge said there was going to be Death Row East and these artists were going to do stuff for Death Row East? And then when we say, and George and Papa G said, there was never a Death Row East. There was never, I don't know there was ever going to be one, but there was not a Death Row East when they were talking about it. I think that can be the most easily explained. Simple truth is the right one, that it was something they were trying to promote. And if there was enough interest in it, then yeah, you'd put money into it. If people were going bananas about a Death Row East, they would put the money into it. But I mean, how long was it after Death Row East that Tupac was killed? Okay.
Days later,
it never had a chance to take off.
Right, and it's not an idea that he has to be married to. I mean, people change their minds in split second. They don't. I mean, I always are committed to doing certain things, and then if I change my mind, I just change my mind. So I think that people just kind of grasp onto that whole Death Row East thing, and they kind of hang on to it. But I just feel like if you change your mind on something, you're not married to it. So.
Yep. Well, I got to throw out a quick shout out to Mimstar from the land down under. I almost moved to Australia. Australia is a will, and again, I love all my fans and I love the countries there. They're so beautiful places. Ireland's beautiful. I almost moved to Australia myself in the late 90s. I spent about a month and a half in Melbourne down there, and it was before the Crown Casino was actually rebuilt. If any of you know that area, that I was down in Melbourne, and it was so freaking amazing. The people were incredible. Kazi, man, I came so close. I priced out how much it would cost to crate my car and ship it down there to Australia. That's how close I came to moving down there. I chickened out eventually because I didn't want to be that far away from my family. But you know, Australia's, I think, one of my favorite places there. So the more people, my Aussie friends, the more people that can come, you know, come on the show, man. You are welcome here. I have a strong passion for all things Australia. I think like a lot of countries in Ireland too. I think you guys do a lot of things right that I think the United States can actually learn from that you do down there. So hats off to you
Well,
all. Bottom.
I'm just gonna add, everybody is welcome in this podcast, this live stream, whatever you
Yep.
want to call it. Doesn't matter what you believe, what you don't believe. All I would say is just be respectful, and just
Yeah.
get along with the. I mean, because you go to other podcasts and other channels and they kick you out just because you don't believe in their ideals. I mean, just come along, come here. It's open forum. Do what you got to do. I appreciate everybody being here. And before you're gonna close out, RJ, because I'm gonna go ahead and just shout out a few people here that came into this.
Shout out, and I will say goodbye when you're
All
done
right.
because we did run a little bit longer than we usually do. We're going to keep these to about an hour, but this one's a marathon. But that's because this was kind of the first out, and we'll be we, it's like a dog running the house all excited, runs all over the house. We're running all over the house right now, but we're excited to get this done.
Right.
So to be
All right.
yeah.
Cool. So Whiskey the Don, appreciate you being here. Connoisseur of Cars, appreciate you being here. Miss Machiavelli 187. Um, Jacquel Thomas, appreciate you being here. Let's see here. I think it was Deuce Times, Whiskey the Don. Appreciate you. Appreciate the donation. Also Yeezy,
Christopher Bell.
Christopher Bell. Thank you for being here. And
Easy.
and if I missed anybody's name, you're always welcome here, and I appreciate you. And I'm assuming that that you're on the lockdown too, as we all are. So
Yep.
this could be something that you can do to kind of pass some time. So I appreciate everybody being here, and RJ, appreciate you too as well for
Dude, this is
yeah.
fun. No, this is fun. I enjoy this. What's up, Kelvin Foster from Knoxville? Welcome to our friends from the South.
David Diaz too from Argentina.
Yep.
So
Argentina, way south,
right,
that's for
right.
sure.
So if you want, go ahead and shout out where you're from. I mean, it's okay with us.
Yeah.
So any last words, RJ, on anything or anything that you want to go ahead and shout?
No, I think we got a lot of great feedback. Again, like I said, we can't do this without you guys. And I hope that one day we'll get some people over there where we get the thousands of people watching the show. I hope so because y'all deserve the truth. Y'all deserve to know what's going on and not be fooled by a lot of bullshit that's disguised as somebody who might have an inside track. Y'all just deserve the facts, and that's what we're bringing. And so tell your friends, tell your family, just hide your wives, hide your kids, whatever they want to say. And, and jump on the show. We're going to tighten our format down and get media out to you all more frequently. All we ask is that when we do the live shows, you jump on and let us know how we're doing. That's it.
Oh yeah, and then I got one last shout out. I was going to shout
Yeah.
out East Yesler TV. So if you get an opportunity, go to East Yesler TV. They got a lot of good content there. You'll actually enjoy it. Have you been to East Yesler TV yet, RJ?
No. Oh,
East
no, I
Yesler,
haven't.
yeah, East Yesler TV is a pretty good channel. It's a little bit, it's a little strange in some areas, but it's ultimately it's good content. So you'll actually enjoy it. So check it out.
I'll, I'll check it out, man. We have an international and a national community here. Everybody's saying where they're from now. Very cool. All right. Well, speaking for me from sunny Southern California, where it's really late, and I'm going to have to, well, it's not as late as it is for you guys, but I got to get a couple things done before I turn in for the night. We appreciate everybody. You guys, like I said before, heartfelt thanks. Can't do it without you. Thanks to the knuckleheads, as always. And that's it for me.
All right, I appreciate you, RJ. Hey, everybody, I appreciate you.
You
Come back
too,
and see
guys.
us. Go to RJ Bond's channel. Check it out. Spotify, iTunes, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Take care.
Take care.